All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a monumental era that fundamentally rewired an entire society. We're looking at this fascinating collision in history, where rigid, old-school traditions slammed headfirst into modern ideas, sparking movements that forever changed the Indian subcontinent.
But before we really get into the weeds, we gotta ask ourselves a pretty profound question. How exactly do you wake up an entire civilization? Like, how does a society that's so deeply entrenched in strict, feudal traditions, where your birth literally dictates everything from your job to who you can even talk to, how does it just begin to snap out of it? Obviously, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a massive, foundational shift in mindset.
Well, that awakening is exactly what we now call the Indian Renaissance. This was a crucial period in the 19th century completely defined by socio-religious reform movements. And the ultimate goal here? To totally regenerate society through sweeping social and educational changes, putting rationalism front and center over what the reformers saw as absolutely abhorrent customs.
So, here's our game plan for today. 1. Awakening modern India. 2. The anatomy of reform. 3. Catalysts for social change. 4. The urban elite blind spot. And finally, 5. An unfinished revolution.
Kicking things off with Section 1, Awakening Modern India, and the transition from feudal hegemony.
To really grasp the gravity of these movements, you have to look at what they were up against. These 19th century reformers were attempting something massive. They were actively trying to dismantle the absolute hegemonic values of a feudal society. In plain terms, they wanted to tear down those unquestionable social hierarchies ruled by birthright and kings. Instead, they wanted to bring in a modern, bourgeois order, a society driven by middle-class values, individual rights, logic, and modern economics. It was a complete paradigm shift.
Moving right along to Section 2, the anatomy of reform, looking at the DNA of these 19th century movements.
Now this brings us to a massive paradox, right at the heart of the Indian Renaissance. On one hand, you had reformers emphasizing this beautiful, universal outlook, championing broad humanism, self-reliance, and true equality for everyone. But on the flip side, the movements themselves were actually incredibly fractured. They were largely confined to very specific regions, particular religions, and even specific castes. And it's not like these efforts happened everywhere all at once either. For instance, the Brahmo Samaj was super active early in the 19th century over in Bengal, while the Arya Samaj really gained its popularity over in Punjab. Meanwhile, similar reform efforts didn't truly pick up in Kerala until much later in the 19th century. Yet despite being so scattered geographically, they were overwhelmingly led by the exact same demographic: highly educated, middle-class folks who were deeply well-versed in Western ideas.
But here's the amazing part. Despite all those differences in time and location, they shared a remarkably radical set of core goals. They wanted to fundamentally regenerate society, and their main tool for that was education. Think about how revolutionary this was for the time. They stood for the emancipation of women and the underprivileged. They wanted to spark self-respect among everyday Indians, and they were desperate to foster a deep sense of rationalism to check the malpractices of Indian religion head-on.
And listen, fighting caste discrimination, that wasn't just some side project for these reformers, it was central to their entire vision. The institution of caste was seen as fundamentally at odds with equality. Leaders like Jyotiba Phule and Sri Narayana Guru didn't just want to, slightly tweak or reform the caste system. They unyieldingly advocated for its absolute, complete abolition.
Okay, let's dive into Section 3, Catalysts for Social Change and their real impact on Indian society.
You honestly can't overstate the significance of these movements in the evolution of modern India. They were aggressively pushing to democratize society and just wipe out what they saw as superstitious, backwards customs. They wanted widespread enlightenment. We even see this in how they handled ancient texts. Various movements actually focused on reinterpreting the Vedas to back up modernized practices. Everything from shifting away from idol worship to actively advocating for women's rights.
And we see this exact same modernizing drive running right through Muslim reform efforts too. Take the Ahmadiyya movement. Inspired by Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, they staunchly opposed jihad and were massive champions of Western liberal education. Right alongside that, you have the Aligarh movement, trying to create a totally new social ethos. They were pushing back against polygamy, advocating for widow marriage, and standing for a much more liberal interpretation of the Quran. The shared theme across the board? A relentless, aggressive push toward a modern outlook.
Ultimately, when we look closely at the source material, it boils down perfectly to this summary. The attempt was to transform the hegemonic values of a feudal society and to introduce values characteristic of bourgeois order.
Simply put, they were trying to completely tear down that old world of kings, rigid castes, and blind obedience, and replace it with a modern world driven by logic, individual rights, and education. Which brings us to Section 4, the urban elite blind spot, and the real limitations of these reformers. So here's a kind of surprising limitation of this era, and it revolves around the number 19. A lot of these reformers actually had an immense amount of faith in British justice. Because of their specialized backgrounds and education, their ultimate idealized goal wasn't actually a uniquely Indian utopia. Rather, they wanted to fashion India specifically after 19th-century Britain.
And because of that Western-facing lens, they really just targeted their own demographics. The Brahma Samaj focused almost exclusively on the Bhadralok, that's the highly educated urban elite of Bengal. The Aligarh movement focused heavily on the Muslim upper classes. So for the most part, these were overwhelmingly urban phenomena. There were really only a few notable exceptions, like the Arya Samaj and certain lower caste movements that actually managed to reach beyond that upper crust of society.
And that leaves us with a really stark, almost ironic reality. While the intellectuals in the cities were experiencing this profound awakening, reading Western philosophy and fiercely debating humanism, the vast majority of everyday folks working out in the rural areas, they were left completely in the dark. The masses generally remained entirely unaffected by this so-called awakening.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, an unfinished revolution, and how this era laid the foundation for the freedom struggle.
Even with those glaring urban blind spots, you have to understand that these movements were the absolute prerequisite for the political freedom that was to come. That is exactly why this era matters so much. By relentlessly prioritizing education, equality, and self-reliance, these reformers planted the critical seeds of rationalism and humanism. And it was those exact, powerful ideas that would later mature and ignite the massive, nationwide freedom struggle that ultimately birthed modern India.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we close out this explainer. The 19th century reformers undeniably successfully challenged the old world, and they absolutely laid the intellectual groundwork for a modern nation. But if a revolution primarily just benefits and frees the urban elite, well, how complete can a societal awakening really be if the masses are left sleeping? It's a fascinating question about the very limits of reform, and honestly, it still echoes today. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this incredible source material.